The New York Times wrote what can only be described as a hit piece on Cenk Uygur, and I could take the time to go through the entire thing here and just rip it apart line by line, but I decided instead of doing that, I just want to focus in on one example that shows you how, in all seriousness, this is credibility ruining for them, because anybody, and I mean anybody, who stumbles across this fact check that I'm about to do, they're going to go, oh, so now I have to take everything with a grain of salt, because this is so above and beyond wrong that it appears malicious, and it appears like they don't care that they're getting something incredibly, mind-numbingly, stupefyingly wrong. So, since Cenk is now running for Congress in the 25th Congressional District in California, you're seeing traditional media kind of coalesce to bury him in the ground. But in all seriousness, they messed up because they're massively overreaching. So here's how they described an interview that Cenk did with David Duke. This is their description in the article. Take a look at this. Figures, including David Duke, in one clip that circulated on Twitter, Mr. Duke ends an interview by saying, "I am not what you call a racist," to which Mr. Uygur replies, "No, of course not." They're making the claim very clearly that Cenk Uygur is agreeing with David Duke when David Duke says, "I'm not a racist." So Cenk is in agreement that, quote, "No, of course not, David Duke isn't a racist. Of course he's not a racist." That's the impression that they're leaving with everybody. That's not up in the air. That's not open to interpretation. That's what they're trying to impress upon you. Now, what you're about to see here is the interview from which that quote came. And you tell me whether or not they're portraying it accurately.
To the banks. Now, anybody who thinks that this Ben Shalom Bernanke is a very strong Jewish supporter of Israel, he's a strong supporter of Jewish establishment organizations.
What is the
anybody who thinks he's not going to favor his own fellow Jewish bankers and giving out that money, like Goldman Sachs, these other bankers.
But David, you misunderstand the problem entirely. That's why you've spent a life headed in the wrong direction.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Now, look. So the Federal Reserve has tremendous issues. By the way, you know, there was two co-sponsors of the bill to audit the Fed. One was Ron Paul on the Republican side. The other one was the guy who actually started the whole process, Alan Grayson, who's a Democrat, who also happens to be Jewish. So why does this Jewish conspiracy want to undermine itself?
Well, let me tell you something. Goldman Sachs.
No, but you know who was the head of Goldman Sachs, who then led the entire bailout of what you say is Jewish bankers?
Yeah, I know who was head of it, Blankfein and
No. Blankfein was the head of it afterwards. Hank Paulson. Hank Paulson is Christian. Okay, so you mentioned cable news. You mentioned CNN. You happen to name one Jewish executive that happens to be in charge now, although there was non-Jewish executives throughout. There was a non-Jewish owner throughout. When I was at MSNBC, and still today, hold on, let me finish. When I was at MSNBC, the CEO was Phil Griffin. I believe he's Irish. I'm not sure, though. Chris Matthews was their largest host. I think he's Irish. Lawrence O'Donnell does a program there. I believe he's Irish. Dylan Ratigan was there. I believe he's Irish. So can I say, oh, the Irish, they have rigged the media in America.
Listen, first off, you're the one cherry picking. You can't take a couple of examples.
No, you can't take the Irish examples, only the Jewish examples.
The truth is...
So even if I were to concede your point, which I most certainly do not, that the Jews are somehow running things or that they are in charge all the time of these media companies. But if I were to, hold on. If I were, for Christ's sake, let me ask the question. If I were to concede that point, okay, so they did a great job. They rose up. They were successful. They should be applauded, whereas you didn't. So you're a loser. So what's the difference? They're the winners, you're the loser.
I'm not a loser.
Why don't you go run the studios? Why didn't you run the studios?
I served 8 years in public office. I went and got.
Why didn't you run CNN? What's stopping you?
I've written.
Name me one anti-Semitic person.
I say that
you can't.
The Jewish organized.
David, how can you think you're not anti-Semitic? How could you possibly think that you think the Jews control the world? That's anti-Semitism 101.
I'll give you another quotation.
Kagan is on the Supreme Court, but so is Sotomayor, and she's definitely not Jewish. She's Latina. I mean, Kagan made it onto the Supreme Court, but so is Sotomayor. Those are 2 picks by Obama. Sotomayor, clearly not Jewish. In fact, what is it? I think 7 out of the 9 justices are Catholic. Oh my God, the Catholics have taken over the Supreme Court. Watch out, David. Watch out. It's the Catholics that are the problem. But then you've got the Koch brothers who buy all these politicians. They're not Jewish. How does that fit into your conspiracy theory? So, I mean, you keep saying Goldman Sachs, but before Blankfein, the head of Goldman Sachs was Hank Paulson. Christian extraordinaire. The biggest political contributor in the country is not Sheldon Adelson. It is David and Charles Koch. They are enormously Christian. They're Christian. If you built everything, but somehow you don't have power anymore, you can't even get into the schools you built, why are you guys such losers?
Let me repeat it once more, because this is incredibly important. The way that they summed up that interview in the article in the New York Times, the paper of record, they said, in one clip that circulated on Twitter, Mr. Duke ends an interview by saying, I am not what you call a racist, to which Mr. Uygur replies, no, of course not. There are 2 possibilities here. Either the reporter who wrote that article, who I'll get to in a second, by the way, either she saw this on Twitter, didn't bother to watch the original interview to get the context, and just lazily put it in, or she knew she was taking it out of context, flipping the reality on its head, and didn't care anyway. Now, I happen to know that when she was in the process of writing this article, the full interview, in its full context, was sent to her. So which is it? Is she immensely lazy and doesn't do her job, in which case she shouldn't be working for the New York Times? Or is she a malicious liar and she shouldn't be doing this job as a result of that? Which is it? I'll ask you guys. I'd be fascinated to see a poll on this. Is this reporter massively lazy or a malicious, dishonest, nefarious liar doing a smear job on purpose? If you look at the Gallup tracking numbers on the media, did you know only 41% of the American people have trust in the media? 41%. There are some polls that have Donald Trump's approval rating above the approval rating of the media. The media is less liked than Donald Trump. You know what percentage has a, quote, great deal of trust in the media? You're going to love this one. 13% of the American people have a great deal of trust in the media. That's as low, or actually lower, than the approval rating of Congress. You wonder why that is. It's not, see, they want to make you believe, oh, it's only the crazy far right-wing people who dislike the media. It's only the crazy far right-wing people who have this conspiracy that, like, the media is bad. What the hell do you call this that just happened to Cenk Uygur? What do you call this? All right, now here's where you get involved, guys, because we're not going to stand for this. So yesterday, I tweeted the correction. I gave her quote, and then I tweeted the correction and said, this is unconscionable. You need to retract and apologize immediately. I haven't heard back. You know how many views the video has? The clip of Cenk in the interview aggressively going after David Duke and disagreeing with him at every turn? You know how many views that video has right now? Over 900,000 views. This thing blew up on political Twitter. She's tagged in it multiple times. She has seen it, and she hasn't said anything in response yet. Well, that's weird. See, if you were just lazy and made a mistake and smeared this guy viciously by saying he agrees with David Duke, well then wouldn't you, if you saw that, wouldn't you be like, oh my goodness, I made a terrible mistake, I have to fix this? Weird, you haven't said anything yet. So how about we're specific in our response here? I'm going to leave her Twitter information in this video. You'll see it written on the screen now. Tweet at her. Now, don't be vicious. Don't say anything that's harassment by any stretch of the imagination. Keep it polite, but let her know you have to fix this. You must retract and apologize. You have to do it. It's unacceptable to leave it as is. So her name is Jenny Medina. Again, I'll leave it on the screen. Now, also, I'll put her email. Email her at the New York Times. Again, same rules apply. Don't be vicious. Don't be a bad person. Don't harass. Don't say or do anything that they could then potentially even 1% turn around and try to ban you or me for sharing their information. Don't do any of that. Be respectful, but let them know. You have to retract and you have to apologize. And by the way, I got multiple tweets last night because, again, over 900,000 people saw the video and they know the New York Times is dead wrong on this, where people are saying, that's it. That was the last straw. I'm canceling my subscription to the New York Times. If you want to cancel your subscription to the New York Times over this, by all means, go right ahead. Why wouldn't you? You see how terrible they are at their job. Are you kidding me? If I ever got something that wrong, I would immediately come out and be like, I was wrong. I was dead wrong. And I was wrong. And I'm happy to correct myself. So that's the reporter. Now we're going to take it a step further. We're going to raise the stakes because, again, I think she already saw it and didn't want to say anything, change anything, because it's looking likely that she's just dishonest. And this is just a smear job. And who's she getting her marching orders from, by the way? I'm very curious on that front. Is she doing this all on her own? I don't know about that. I would think maybe there are higher-ups who are like letting her know, like, this is kind of what we want you to do. Could it be Cenk Uygur's opponent in his California race? Could be. Now, I don't know for sure. I have no evidence of that, but it's possible. Could it be higher-ups in Democratic leadership in Congress? We know who those names are. Could be. Again, I don't know for sure. Could it be her editors? It's possible it's her editors, but in the case that it's not her editors and the editors are not dishonest, I want you to tweet at them too. So here's the Twitter information of the editors. So you have at Patrick Healy New York Times and you have at Corbett New York Times. Tweet at them. Again, same rules. Don't be vicious. Don't do anything that could get you banned or me banned. Be respectful, but let them know you must retract and apologize. This is unacceptable. This is obviously untrue. Now, also, you could do it. You could respond to them and send them the tweet that I originally tweeted because it shows the video of how aggressive he is against David Duke. So, you could tag that tweet when you tweet them, or you could just tweet them without it. I think it helps if you send the video to them because then they're stone cold caught. It's not like they think there's any wiggle room for interpretation. Like, oh no, we think you're wrong and we think we actually portrayed it accurately. Well, no, if you have the video there of the interview, which I tweeted, again, I'll retweet it as soon as I'm done with the show here. But if you tag that with it, what are they going to do? They're caught stone dead. Again, guys, over 900,000 people have seen the video. People all over Twitter, every ideological stripe you could think of are going, oh, so you're just lying about him. That's what you're doing. You're just lying. So we're gonna find out, guys, and that's why I'm doing this. That's exactly why I'm doing this, because we're gonna find out if they retract and apologize. If they retract and apologize, okay, then the reporter was just lazy, which is bad enough. That's really bad. I'm not giving a pass for that. They retract and apologize. Okay, though, you're just lazy. It happens. But if they don't retract and apologize, oh, you're dishonest and you're smearing on purpose. And I have a bad feeling about what the intentions were. I do. And I'll tell you why. Because ever since Cenk Uygur announced he was running for Congress, every single article about him, and I'm not kidding about this, every single article calls him sexist, racist, misogynist, every bad name in the book. There's not a single one that mentions that he was a co-founder of Justice Democrats, which helped get 7 amazing Justice Democrats elected in Washington, D.C., including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They don't mention that. They also don't mention that he's a founder or co-founder, I'm not sure which one, of Wolfpack. Wolfpack is the movement to try to get money out of politics, get an amendment to get money out of politics. And by the way, lest you say, oh my God, that one's been a failure. Actually, no, because the resolution has passed through a number of states. They're still not at the point yet where we can actually have a constitutional convention. They still have work to do, no doubt. But many states have actually passed the resolution. So don't sleep on Wolfpack. That's actually been very successful compared to other groups in that same category of trying to get money out of politics. So his life's work has been trying to get money out of politics, founding and co-founding a group that is an attempt to move the Democratic Party to the left, and building a giant progressive behemoth network. Now, again, don't get me wrong. Do I have disagreements with Cenk Uygur? Of course I do. Of course I do. You know, we could spar on the details of impeachment, and we would totally disagree on that. We could massively, and we had a debate about it. We could massively disagree and debate about Russiagate, for sure. I think he should have endorsed Bernie earlier. Again, there are a million things I could sit here and say, I think he's wrong about this, or I think he needs tweaking here, whatever it might be. But isn't it weird when he announces his run for Congress, there's not a single article, forget treating him fairly, that's even being objective, just barely objective when it comes to him. They don't talk about his life's work. They don't talk about the successes. He's portrayed across the board as an unhinged, sexist, racist lunatic. People are digging up old, quotes from his old episodes, massively taking them out of context to try to make him look like an insane person. Which, by the way, we knew that was going to happen. But you expect that from the far right. You expect that from some unscrupulous corporate Democrats. You do not expect that from the media. The media has to have higher standards, and we're going to make them have higher standards. So again, I gave you all the Twitter information. I gave you the email of the reporter. Do your thing. And this is a really important point. Every single time they do a verified smear against him, verified, where we could just debunk it like that, donate more to Cenk's campaign. And let me tell you something, guys. I happen to know that his opponents, after they unleashed this massive smear campaign, highly organized Oppo research effort from corporate Democrats, they thought, oh, that's it. That's it. We knocked him out. It's over. It's over. He got up off the mat, though. And he's like, I'm not going anywhere. They seriously thought, like, oh, well, he's going to curl into the fetal position and drop out. Do you know nothing about Cenk Uygur? Of course he's not going to do that. This only lights the fire under him more. Now he wants to get elected even more. As they're attacking him over past politically incorrect statements, he's going on and on about Medicare for all. His opponent just took money from health insurance companies. Just did it. They're trying to say he's disqualified because of things he said. He said back to them, oh, I'm disqualified. You just took money from health insurance companies at a time when 45,000 Americans die every year because they don't get basic health care. You're disqualified. You're disqualified. You take corporate money. You're the corrupt one. You're disqualified. You represent the rot in this system. You represent business as usual status quo politics, which will change nothing. And that's exactly why they're going after him. They know he'll change stuff. They need to make an example out of him, guys. They need to make an example. They need to let him know, no. If you're somebody who's a genuine outsider, if you're somebody who's really going to represent these left-wing positions, represent the voters, if you're going to go all in on small dollar donors, no, we're going to make an example of you. Because if Cenk Uygur can win this race, anybody can win any race if they're fighting for the people and they're raising with small dollar donations. They cannot control him. And what this shows is they're absolutely terrified. They're terrified he could win, which is why they're all in with all the smears up front. And by the way, they'll keep rolling out. I guarantee you they'll keep rolling out. They'll hit them again. They'll clip out stuff, old stuff that's out of context and weird. And you'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. Oh, wait, the full context is that? Oh, all right, it's not as bad as I thought it was. That's always what's going to happen because that's all they have is PC outrage. That's all they have is gross accusations about sexism and racism to a guy who co-founded, or actually founded, the biggest progressive online news network. But that's going to be your strategy? That's going to be your strategy. I mean, when it's so easy to debunk, it's ridiculous. So there's a reason why they're doing this. They're scared of him, and they cannot defeat him if the argument is Medicare for all. They cannot defeat him if the argument is free college or a living wage or ending the wars. They can't defeat him on those things. They can't defeat him on getting money out of politics, which is his main issue, is ending the corruption. They can't defeat him on that, so what do? Smears all day long. And now they have the paper of record doing their dirty work. Well, we're going to correct the record here because this is unacceptable. And we're going to make them do a retraction. Again, be nice about it, but we're going to make them do a retraction because this is unacceptable. And they've ruined all their credibility with this utter nonsense. So let's see, are they just massively lazy and terrible at their job, or are they liars? We're going to find out